guys. It's a blessing to be able to speak with you guys this morning, and thanks for being here. Just a note on that handout, there is 4 points on there that are blank, and so I would encourage you, and I guess maybe you might not have a chance to print it off, but maybe even if you grab a pen and you can write some of maybe the things that you take out of those 4 points as we go through this. But what I want to talk about today is something called running to win. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to compete in the Olympic Games? What about standing on the podium to receive a gold medal in your event? What would that be like? You know, right now, as probably all of you are aware, the Olympics are happening in Paris, and about 11,000 athletes from all over the world are competing for their countries. Most of those athletes are between 15 to 35 years of age, and I looked it up, and the average peak of an Olympic athlete is around 27 years old. There are some young ones and some old ones competing. The youngest athlete competing this year in the games is an 11-year-old Chinese female skateboarder, and the oldest to compete is a 65-year-old Spanish male equestrian rider. So, you're thinking that your Olympic possibilities are over? There's still hope. But remember, some of these athletes have been training anywhere from 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20 plus years, as some of them go to multiple Olympic Games in their lifespan. What does it take to be an Olympian, or even better, what does it take to win gold in the Olympics? Well, there's lots of things to consider, and it's a big commitment. But there's 11,000 athletes in Paris right now who have done what they need to do to get to the Olympics and give themselves an opportunity to win a medal. That's pretty exciting, and for some of them, the first time, some of them a few other times they've been, but it's an incredible opportunity for them. But they didn't just sign up last month and say, hey, I want to compete in the Olympics and join their country's team. They had to plan out their training regimen for years in advance and persevere through it, even at times when they didn't feel like it. You know, if you look back 4 years ago, before this Olympics, they could have looked ahead and said, the next games are 4 years from now. I have lots of time to get in shape. But what they probably did was saying, you know, if I want to be at my best and win gold at the Olympics, I have to start now. There's a goal that they have, prize to be won, to be the very best that they can be, and ultimately to be an Olympic champion and win a gold medal. Now, one of my favorite events, and one of the ones that in the Olympics is, you know, one of the ones that's most watched, is the 100-meter final. And it's actually happening this upcoming weekend. Now, let's imagine for a minute with me for a second. What would that be like for you to be in the 100-meter final in Paris? Let's think about that for a moment. Train for many years, sacrifice so much time and energy, and foregone some of the fun things to do that you had to forego to get into your regimen and keep with your regimen of working out. And you said no to the Krispy Kremes, potato chips, and Big Macs so many times, constantly gotten up early to run and train, worked incredibly hard, disciplined yourself and your body to get it into peak shape, just to have a chance to win the race, to be the fastest man, or for our women's group, the fastest woman in the world. What would that be like? You get into the stadium, holds 77,000 people, and it's full, and the whole world is watching this race on television or on live stream. The atmosphere is electric. You're nervous and excited, as all the other athletes are. You find the blocks, you line up in your lane, in your blocks, you're focused, you're ready, trying to quiet your thoughts for this incredible moment. The official comes over the intercom, says, runners on your marks, bang, the gun goes off and you bolt out of the blocks along with your competitors. The crowd starts cheering loudly and gets louder as you run down the track. You're straining every muscle and fiber of your being to get down that track as fast as you possibly can. You can see you're neck and neck with the ones next to you. It's intense. The crowd gets louder in anticipation of who will cross the finish line first. You're giving it everything you've got. It's all happening so fast. This is what you've worked so hard for. But it's close, and just a few more steps to the finish line, and The crowd roars in approval as you cross the finish line as the victorious gold medal winner of the 100-meter dash. The crowd's going crazy. You're ecstatic. People are wanting to congratulate you. You grab a Canadian flag. Or if you're on the call here and not a Canadian, the flag of the country you're representing, but you grab a flag and you start to do a victory lap. One of the most incredible moments of your life. What would that be like? Just take a second. Imagine that. The crowd, your family, friends celebrating, media wanting to interview you, the sweet taste of victory. It would be amazing. Something you would recall and cherish for the rest of your life. As you think about what that victory would be like, what would be the equivalent of winning gold at the Olympics be like for you in your own personal life? If you could win at a certain aspect of your own life, what aspect would you want to win at? You know, obviously we're all a part of a recovery group team here with DFR and looking to be victorious in overcoming sexual addiction. And there are some principles that we can take from the Olympics and apply to our recovery journey. Along with that, I want to look at 4 verses from 1 Corinthians 9 that speak with Olympic-like language. You see, in Bible times, they had athletic races in the Olympics as well. And as I looked into this passage in the Enduring Word commentary, it says this: sporting events were big in Paul's day, as well as in our own. This was especially meaningful to the Corinthians because their city was the center for the Isthmian Games, second in prestige to the ancient Olympics. And Paul often uses figures from arena competition, at least 12 different references in his letters, including examples of runners, boxers, gladiators, chariot racers, and trophies. So the passage I want us to look at today is from 1 Corinthians 9, 24 to 27. And we'll look at it and read it from a few different versions to get a good understanding of it. In the New Living Translation, it says, "Don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. So I run with purpose in every step. I'm not just shadowboxing. I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified." In the New International Version, it says, "Do you not know that in a race all runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I preach to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize." In the Amplified Version, it says this: "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run their very best to win, but only one receives the prize? Run your race in such a way that you may seize the prize and make it yours. Now, every athlete who goes into training and competes in the games is disciplined and exercises self-control in all things. They do it to win a crown that withers, but we do it to receive an imperishable crown that cannot wither. Therefore, I do not run without a definite goal. I do not flail around like one beating the air, just shadowboxing. But, like a boxer, I strictly discipline my body and make it my slave, so that after I preach the gospel to others, I myself will not somehow be disqualified as unfit for service." And in the Passion Translation, it says, "Isn't it obvious that all runners on the racetrack keep on running to win, but only one receives the victor's prize? Yet each one of you must run the race to be victorious. A true athlete will be disciplined in every respect, practicing constant self-control in order to win a laurel wreath that quickly withers. But we run our race to win a victor's crown that will last forever. For that reason, I don't run just for exercise or box like one throwing aimless punches, but I train like a champion athlete. I subdue my body and get it under my control, so that after preaching the good news to others, I myself won't be disqualified. Now, a couple of things about this passage. Paul is not speaking here of beating his body to earn favor or punish himself for sin, but more of disciplining his body in order to be victorious. And in the commentary, the Enduring Word commentary that he used for looking at this passage, when he talks about being disqualified, it's not a salvation issue. It's more of the loss of reward issue. And also, Paul is writing about sharing the good news of the gospel and bringing people to Christ. That's the context. That verse, a verse about that comes right before these 4 verses. But for us as well, God has called us to be lights in our world and share the good news of Christ with others as well. Every believer in the world has this calling, and there are things that get in the way of us being able to live out that calling to run our race well. And addictions can be one of those things. So I want to take some of these principles and apply them to our recovery journey. There's so many good things that we could pull out of this passage and could talk about them for a long time, but I just want to focus on 4 principles today to help us to run to win in this recovery journey. First off, believe that victory is attainable. There is a prize to be won. If there were no prize to be won, there would be no Olympics, no races, no competitions, no packed stadiums of people paying hundreds and thousands of dollars to watch the games and cheer their faces off. If there were no prizes, there would be no motivation for people to train hard, to do well in them, to win the race, to beat your opponent. But because there is a prize to be won, there is motivation to do what you can do to win. And so knowing that there's a prize is important, but knowing also that it is possible to win it. Every athlete has to wrestle with their belief as to whether or not they believe that they can win it. If they don't believe that they can win, they won't try as hard to do so. Belief is so important. When my kids were growing up in sports, I would talk to them about the mental aspect of belief. You have to believe that you're the best player on the ice, or that no one is going to beat you the puck, or that no one is going to outwork you. Why? Why did I tell them that? Because you play like you believe. If you don't believe you're going to win, you won't try as hard. But if you believe like you will win, you will play like it and give yourself the best chance to win. In your recovery journey, I want to encourage you guys today that victory is available and victory is possible for you. Full stop. You need to know that there is hope to overcome all of this. And you have to trust God when he says that in Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Before an athlete stands on a podium to receive a medal, know it started with them knowing that there's a prize to be won, and they believed it was possible for them to claim it. If you're struggling in your recovery today, wondering if it's possible to overcome this, I want to encourage you to choose to believe it, that it is possible and that you can win, whether it feels that way or not. I encourage you to choose to believe it, that you can overcome this addiction, walk in victory, and grow in your walk with God. Second thing is identify your prize. This is your why in your recovery journey. Why are you going through this recovery process right now? What is the positive result of all this work that you're aiming for? What is it that you don't have in your life right now that you desperately want and would do whatever it takes to achieve it? Have you identified your prize? This is so important for you to know, for you to have grasped for yourself, for you to envision. What does victory look like for you in your recovery journey? There's many possibilities, and I'll throw a few out here. Victory for you might be that you're no longer a slave to the addiction. You are free to say no, and you do. It might be that you're in control of the addiction and not your addiction being in control of you. It might be personal integrity. I can trust myself to make choices that are good and pure. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And when I say I won't do something, I won't do it. I can trust myself. Maybe it's a restored trust that's been broken with your spouse and a restored love and peace between the two of you. Maybe it's freedom from the guilt and shame that comes with the addiction, not having to deal with that because you're not acting out in it. It might be a renewed sense of receiving God's forgiveness. And as you do that, being able to forgive yourself. It might be the freedom to be around others and not feel like I have to hide who I am. It might be a relief to know that you don't have to keep heavy secrets and always wondering how you're going to keep them covered. Your victory might be an ability to receive all the love that God has for you, so that you have more love to give away and love others. It might be a tremendous emotional healing from the wounds of the past that have caused and been part of the root of the addiction. What about a deep and satisfying peace of knowing God more intimately as a friend and not a judge that you have to please? There are many, many things that it could be, and likely a combination of the above, or all of the above and more. Like an Olympic athlete, it's important to know what the prize or reward is for going through the intense training to get there. What's the reward that you are training for? And I encourage you to write some things down there as to what your reward is. Thirdly, embrace discipline. Now, discipline sometimes seems like a bad word, but discipline is vital to victory. Paul says, I discipline my body like an athlete. Discipline and self-control are vitally important in order to be victorious. Yes, discipline can be difficult, but one of the things that feeds addiction is a lack of discipline. Just doing what I want, when I want, and not worrying about consequences. Discipline and self-control confront our feelings of, I just don't feel like it. It's not convenient. I don't want to. They challenge our fleshly desire to take the easy way out, to only do the bare minimum, or put off the important aspects needed to be victorious. I recognize that the process of recovery and training is necessary. I recognize that the process of recovery and training necessary take hard work, commitment, discipline, and things that we don't necessarily feel like doing. But letting our feelings determine whether we train or not will never lead to sustained victory. But letting God, our values, and commitment to victory determine our training, and depending on the Holy Spirit to empower us to do the things we don't feel like doing, will have a much more powerful impact on whether we obtain victory over this addiction or not. These are some of the disciplines of recovery that help us to win. Praying in the morning, reading recovery material or podcasts for 15 minutes a day, making a phone call each day, coming to ReGroup each week, going through the 12-step recovery book, meeting with your wingman, encouraging others also on the journey, working through soul pain and the roots of your addiction, disciplining yourself to think and act differently than you have in your addiction, memorizing scripture, using the tools of recovery, putting boundaries and consequences in place, and depending on Jesus to work in and through you to overcome this addiction. These and other aspects of recovery take discipline, but I want to encourage you to embrace discipline like Paul did, because it's vitally important to walk in victory. And as you do this journey with the people around you, the people in your group, you're part of a team, and you can work together and encourage one another on and spur one another on, just like an Olympic athlete team. They encourage each other, they work out together, they spur one another on. And we can do that in this process of discipline. Sometimes making that phone call is like, oh man, do I want to make that phone call? Well, realize that when you do that, you're encouraging a teammate. You're building into them, you're helping them in the recovery process. It takes discipline, but it's so powerful when we do these things. Lastly, the fourth thing is walk by the Spirit. And there are two aspects regarding walking by the Spirit that I want to mention. The first one is for us to not let our body be our master. Not that our bodies are bad. They're not good masters. Paul talks about disciplining his body as striking a blow to his body. And the New King James Version says, I discipline my body and bring it into subjection. What does that mean? Well, in the commentary that I looked up, it said, discipline is a weak translation. The ancient Greek word means to strike under the eye, to give a black eye. Paul didn't want his body to lord it over his entire being. And to bring it into subjection literally means to lead about as a slave. Paul made sure that his body was the servant and his inner man was the master. The desires of his body were not going to rule over his entire self. Paul made sure that he let his body know who was in charge. He disciplined his body so that he didn't just tell people how to run the race. He took an active role in deciding how he was going to be victorious and run in such a way as to win the prize. Sometimes his body complained it didn't want to do what needed to be done. But Paul determined what needed to be done, regardless of whether he felt like it or not. And what an incredibly impactful life and ministry he had. In your recovery journey, are you willing to discipline your body and make it a slave? Bring it under the rule of your spirit in order to be victorious. Are you letting it tell you what it will and won't do? The second aspect of walking by the Spirit is depending on the Holy Spirit to empower us in the recovery journey. We can't do this on our own. Galatians 5:16 says, "So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh." When we submit ourselves to God's Spirit, walking in step with Him, and disciplining our bodies to be the slave and not the master, it says we won't fulfill the desires of the flesh. We'll walk in victory. And it's not just a one-time thing. It's a continual way of depending on the Holy Spirit to empower us, walking in step with Him in order to run this race to win. In conclusion, we started off talking about what it would be like to be an Olympic champion. What it would be like to experience that victory. We looked at how there are principles from the Olympics now to run to be victorious from 1 Corinthians 9:24-27. We talked about to believe that victory is attainable. You can win over this addiction. Identifying your prize. Secondly, what is the reward that you are working towards in your recovery journey? Thirdly, to embrace discipline, which is a vital component for victory. And fourth, walking by the Spirit, both in your spirit ruling your body and depending on God's Spirit to lead and empower you one step, one day at a time. The rewards for overcoming this addiction are so good and so worth it in this life, as we mentioned above. But they go beyond that to eternity. As we run this race of life, growing and becoming more like Jesus, depending on Him to help us walk in victory, we shine His light into our world, helping other people come to know Him. And there are eternal rewards for us in heaven as well. God bless you, each one of you, as you run this recovery race to win.